Today we are going to be talking about one of the most important things when it comes to gardening, filling a raised garden bed. I'm currently working with two Vego metal raised garden beds. I've got one over here and one that's already been filled. The idea is to extend the garden, which is kind of why we have this mess here. I'm assuming that once you have your raised bed in place, you've leveled it out. Maybe you had to dig around the edges to get it that way, but you do want your raised bed as level as possible before you start filling it. You can see I've got some weeds coming up right there. And in my experience, the best way to get rid of weeds is cardboard. Save your big pieces of cardboard. You'll be glad you did, especially if you're putting in a garden. You're also going to want to have a basic utility knife. When putting your cardboard in, you want to make sure that you cover all of the area. That actually looks pretty good. This is where your utility knife comes in handy. And by the way, don't worry about what any of this stuff looks like. Nobody will ever see it. I'd say that's pretty good. One thing that I always try to do is to get the cardboard nice and wet. That way when you put on the next layers, everything kind of settles a little bit. Now that we've hopefully killed off all of the weeds, our next layer is what we call our base layer. There are many things you can use as a base layer. The base layer basically has two purposes. Purpose number one is drainage. It's going to help the soil drain a little bit better. That way you don't get root rot because you don't want the soil holding on to all that water for long periods of time. For that, if you're concerned about drainage, you can use coarse sand, gravel, or rock. The other reason why you want to apply a base layer in raised bed gardening is so that you fill up space and you don't spend so much money on soil. It's going to save you a lot of money. It's something I've done in all of our raised beds, and I've got about 15 to 20 raised beds. So if I want to fill up this raised bed, it's 17 inches tall to the edge here. So instead, I'm going to fill up the bottom 5 or 6 inches with organic matter. Organic matter, that word gets thrown around a lot, but basically it's anything that's natural that's in the process of breaking down. And in my opinion, you should use whatever organic matter you have on your property. But instead of walking around the woods and taking my saw out and cutting up a whole bunch of dead limbs that have fallen, I'm actually going to put firewood on the bottom of this raised bed. And it's not firewood that you would typically use to heat your home that's got a higher value. I'm using firewood with a lower value, stuff you would use for campfires or boiling maple syrup or something like that. In most of these raised beds back here, with the exception of these really shallow ones, I have logs instead. And that's just because it was a free resource I have in the woods around our property. The next process that I use to fill raised beds is to find organic matter that's a little bit smaller. In other words, I've got some cracks here that firewood would not fit in, so I'm going to use other organic matter to fill in that space for me. The best thing to use, in my opinion, is actually leaf mulch. What's the difference between leaves and leaf mulch? Well, leaf mulch is something that's chopped up rather than the leaves in their full form. So to chop them up, I simply use our lawnmower that I use anyway to collect them in the fall. It's a free resource and they break down a little bit better. But if you don't have a way of creating leaf mulch at your house, you just want to rake them up quick, put them in your raised bed, that works too. They're just not going to break down as fast. This is a much more enjoyable way of utilizing natural resources that you may have on your property, and putting natural organic material in your raised bed is a great way to utilize a resource that you already have in the first place. Then you simply just take a rake, spread them out. You definitely want to fill in the corners, the edges, the cracks, any place where it's going to settle over time that you think it will settle based on what you can see. The leaves are about 5 or 6 inches from the edge of this raised bed. That may seem like a lot, but really this is going to settle quite a bit. So the next step to this process, in a similar way to the cardboard, is to take a hose and really spray this down. Give this a good hard soaking. That's going to allow for whatever you end up putting on next, either compost, soil, or both. That's going to allow for that to really have a little bit more space and to also settle in. The next step is to add compost to our garden. We add compost in all of our raised beds, and our chickens make the compost for us. They scratch around all of the organic matter we put in there, usually leaves, and then after about a year you can scrape away that top layer and you're going to find that there is some good compost right below it. You simply scoop it up, put it into a wheelbarrow, and you've got good healthy compost made right on your property. This is a good way to save a lot of money and also utilize your chickens. Once it's placed into the raised bed, I usually put about 1 inch or maybe 2 inches. That way your plants get lots of good nutrients as they grow and as their roots develop. The difference between compost and soil is that compost offers a lot of good nutrients and soil is used more for the structure that the plants also need. We like to use compost and soil in our raised beds, and in the past our garden has really benefited from using both rather than just one or the other. The next step is adding the soil. Let me explain this type of soil that I have in this trailer. We're talking about garden blend. It's a particular soil that I purchase in bulk, as you can see. The reason why this is important is because it saves you so much money. If you're filling up multiple raised beds, you want to make sure you're buying things in bulk so you can save money. The other reason why this is important is because this particular garden blend is a combination of soil and compost. After you have your base layers figured out inside your raised beds, it's important to determine whether you want to layer them with compost, soil, or use a mixture like I have right here. In the past, I've used just compost inside raised beds that I purchased in bulk. It was cow manure compost. I had pretty good success with that. I've also purchased just raised bed soil, and I had pretty good luck with that as well. But when I switched to a garden blend, which is compost and soil, that's when I had the best harvest and the most healthy plants year after year, which is why I recommend something like this. The last step is to add mulch to your raised beds. You can use leaf mulch, straw, wood shavings, anything that's organic that will eventually break down. If you're dropping individual seeds that you would like to germinate to create the plant directly into the garden, we call that direct sowing, don't use mulch. But if you plan on putting flowers that are already established, tomato plants, squash plants, anything you plan on transplanting from a greenhouse or something you started from seed inside your house, you definitely want to add mulch to your raised bed. That's going to suppress weeds, it's going to hold in moisture, it's going to do a lot of great things for the plants once they get established inside your raised bed. Vego Garden raised beds are designed with functionality in mind, providing excellent drainage and a solid structure for your plants. These beds are made with high quality, eco-friendly materials, and they're a great choice for gardeners who want to ensure healthy soil, successful growth right from the start. They're also great for beginning gardeners and even gardeners with a lot of experience. You can put one of these together in about 30 minutes. If you have experience filling raised beds, let me know down in the comments the layers that you use to establish a good quality raised bed filling. If you'd like to know more about how we operate and function on our homestead, click the subscribe button over here. Don't forget to give this a like. I hope to see you on the next video.